CEDF Look North online forum. So over the course of the week, we've had, I believe, between 240 and 260 participants. Great level of participation. I am bringing our greetings on our last day from Treaty 5, and uh, I'd like to thank everyone for signing in today. Our topic today is expanding community-based operations. And I will ask everyone if they can turn off their mic. I noticed that we're getting some background noise already. Um, yeah, if you can get your mics turn off, perfect. As I mentioned, we are going to be today's topics expanding community-based opportunities in forestry. We are going to start off by doing the housekeeping items, as I just mentioned about the mics. Also, we will be showing our video that we showed on Monday on forestry. Since not everyone on today would have been there on Monday, we're just going to re-show it. If you're having some problems with the choppiness of it, you may want to turn your video off as well. If there's any issues that arise, please just through our chat box, or you can also comment on things. I noticed that people always check in on the chat box. If there's any email contacts you want to put in there as well for anyone. After we show our video, I'll be introducing our keynote speaker. And then, of course, after that, we'll be doing the breakout sessions. Towards the end of today, since it's our last day, I will be introducing our board chair again, Jamie Wilson, who was, of course, there on Monday, and he will be also introducing our new incoming CEO, Mohammed, who will have a chance to speak as well. So, so in saying that, we have a pretty packed schedule. So what I'll like is if we can just start off with our video, and then we'll go on to our keynote speaker.
And my dad was a very, a good inspiration for what I come to understand about how to survive and stuff. I purchased this sawmill about 5 years ago now, maybe less, because we have so much trees around here and then we have a housing shortage. So it's got to be a little step. I figured if I did some work on the sawmill, maybe it'll inspire the community or the chief and council to do something about it rather than always depending on other sources.
Favorite part about doing my job is sort of hard to say. I guess you could say I started in a sawmill at 19 years old. I have sawdust in my blood and I haven't been able to shake it. My name is Jason Powell. I'm the Chief Inspector and Manager for Central Forest Products Association. We are a lumber grading agency. We license sawmills to grade stamp lumber. We conduct monthly inspections on them and also monitor the HT program for CFIA to ensure that Canadian wood products leaving the country meet the HT requirements of the importing country. What we're doing today in Split Lake is we're trying to establish a series of grade rules that will allow rough cut lumber to attain a number 2 or a stud stamp. This is very important because the building code requires all lumber that goes into modern homes. Basically, the lumber needs to be grade stamped to have the assurance that it meets the quality specs for home building. Well, there could be a number of benefits. I mean, it's an opportunity that would allow local produced lumber to be used in locally produced homes. It's an opportunity to expand the education of the people in the community for the uses of lumber. Well, partnering with CEDF, I believe that their goal is to this is a pilot project to see whether communities will be able to saw their own lumber for their own use. There's always been sort of a housing issue in the north. This could be an avenue for which we could provide raw materials for housing that are certified and employment for the community.
Oh, some of the benefits I see that when I bought this sawmill was that people see that they can do what they want to do rather than just wondering if they can do. And when they see me struggling, I'm hoping to show them that a little bit of struggle doesn't hurt anybody. The thing I wanted to get was to achieve was to get healthy, working on logs and stuff, and to be out there on the land, and at the same time to help people that might need a little bit of lumber, and then to possibly have a spin-off, like I said before, regarding the sawmill. Well, how it came about, government agent by the name of Greg, he asked me about my sawmill, and then he had said that there was money with the sawmill projects or whatever might get started. And then through a proposal, he recommended a person to write up a proposal. And then from there, he got a hold of CEDF. As we talked at that first meeting, I noticed Oswald, he had in his eyes that it's like he hooked onto something that might work, and then that really got us going within our community. We talked about it, and we're hoping to achieve what we wanna do for the community.
The biggest thing I'm hoping that Jonathan can see is that there's a variety of different products that we can use or make with local materials that will be of a definite asset to the local community. I've also sort of talked about the rough grading or the grading of rough lumber, and that we can use these products in local communities and have them certified.
Great. So that's just one example of some community-based operations in forestry that we're working with clients on. And in saying that, I want to now introduce Shauna Kortz. Shauna is a graduate of Lakehead University with an honors Bachelor of Science in Forestry. She has spent 10 years working in British Columbia for various consulting companies, large sawmill operations, and First Nation forestry companies. June this time, Shauna was responsible for First Nations logging, milling, and building construction. She then moved back to her home province of Manitoba and took a forestry job in Thompson. Shauna has now made Thompson her home and has been here for approximately 18 years working with various logging companies, large industries, non-timber forest industries, and various local sawmill operations. So if we can all welcome Shauna. And Shauna, the floor is yours. Oh, just need your mic. I think you just have to.
Shauna, if you're having trouble, one thing to try might be just leaving the meeting and coming back right away.
Okay. Shauna will be right back. Shauna worked with William Henderson to complete our forestry optimization strategy plan, and that's what she'll be presenting today.
Oswald, is it helpful if right now, while we're waiting for Shauna to get back on, you kind of address what we'll be doing immediately after hearing from her?
Yeah, let's do that. So Ryan, you want to speak a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, everybody. I'm Ryan. I'm with the Envision Edge team, and David is here as well. You just heard his voice. He's supporting us technically and coaching on idea generation as well. There he is. So what we're going to do after we hear from Shauna is going to present, as Oswald said, some important strategic initiatives as it relates to forestry in northern Manitoba. That's going to give us a lot of helpful context. And with that context, we want to leverage the group and your thinking to generate ideas or solutions. And we're going to do that by going into breakout rooms and discussing specific topics. I think one of them is small operations, and the other is harvesting non-timber products. So we're going to have conversations kind of framed in those two topics. We're going to focus on those areas. And we're going to use a couple different types of conversation starters, I guess you would say, just to get your mind thinking about the problem, maybe in a different way, or about opportunities in a bit of a different way. So once we've heard from Shauna, we are going to get into breakout rooms, have a discussion. The CEDF team is going to capture what's going on, and they're going to help keep that discussion moving forward. Then we're going to come back, share what we've discussed, maybe some standout ideas. I know yesterday when we dealt with commercial fishing, we had some really cool and unique ideas that came up just by having good conversation about it. And we're going to do the same today. And then we'll go into a breakout room, do it one more time. And in that second, we'll probably focus a little bit on what do you think the next step could be? So if we've got a really cool idea, what could we do about it? And we want to hear from you on that as well. And that will kind of take us through that portion of our time together today. But just to give you kind of that heads up that that's going to be coming after we hear from Shauna.
Hey, Shauna, so you want to test out your mic?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Okay. I'm on the phone, so I wasn't sure. I must have screwed up somewhere and hit the wrong button. All right. How do I turn on my PowerPoint?
I believe
Bottom of your screen, there's going to be a green screen share button.
Oh, at the top?
Then select your PowerPoint.
Okay. On the left?
The green screen share button should be at the bottom. Then you can choose how you want to share.
Manage participants. I don't see the green share button on the bottom.
David, did you want to just show the presentation from your end, and then?
I can do that. I'm just going to grab it here quick.
And Shauna, you can just ask Dave to advance the slides.
Sure.
Okay, it'll just take me a second to pull it up here.
Yeah, I'm not sure why I can't, there's no button there.
And what was the presentation called?
It's Look North Forestry Strategic Plan.
Okay. Loading.
Technology.
I know. Okay. I think we're in business, so you'll just need to tell me when to click on the next slide.
Sure. All right, good morning. Thank you everyone for inviting me to speak this morning. I'm going to present the Look North Forestry Strategic Plan. As Oswald said, I've spent many years working in the forest industry. I have a background with small industry, large industry, many different First Nation communities. So today I'm going to present the Look North Forestry Strategic Plan. If you want to go to the next slide, please. So just a bit of background. The process began with the stakeholder engagement process. This was a bunch of questions that were put together by the Community Economic Development Fund Look North staff and William Henderson Consulting. So some of the questions that were asked of people were, are you currently involved in economic activity based on the forest resources in northern Manitoba? And what's your role? What are the challenges your activities are facing? Are you able to supply the current demand for your product? If not, what actions do you need to take to address this? Do you have sufficient demand for your product? Do you see opportunities for developing economic activities based on forest resources in northern Manitoba? And what are some of the challenges? Are there government policies that you feel are a barrier to the development of economic activities based on forest resources? So William Henderson put this document together, asked the questions. Some of the engagement process included the large-scale forest industry, such as Canadian craft paper, spruce products, and industry executives with operating experience in Manitoba. The small-scale forest industry, that involved quota holders, logging contractors, small-scale sawmills, wood product manufacturing. Government and industry associations, they talked to the province of Manitoba, Forest Industry Association of Manitoba, FP Innovations, Manitoba Hydro, Efficiency Manitoba. The non-timber forest products and trapping group that they talked to were the harvesters. They also talked to, community people that attended the training sessions, trappers and fur products. They talked to the lodges and outfitters, fishing, outfitting, accommodation, and lastly, they included interested Northerners, so informed knowledge of Look North region's economic development. So that was the group that they asked the questions of. Their input was summarized into challenges, opportunities, and concerns. Some of the challenges that were brought forward were markets, the downturn in lumber prices, infrastructure to access the timber, skilled labor force, cost of equipment, regular product supply, processing issues, shipping costs, and government support in the north were a few of the challenges that were brought forward. So the findings were then used to develop the Look North Forestry Strategic Plan, which is where I come in. And the Look North staff asked me to put together the strategy. If you can advance the slides, please. So the Look North Strategic Plan 2020-2021, again, the vision, growing northern Manitoba. The mission, through leadership and community building, creating connections and business development, we unleash the economic power of northern Manitoba. So the strategic direction, the plan is going to have 6 strategic goals and 9 objectives. And it'll include key actions for each objective used as a measure of performance for the executive and staff. And it is based on the study done by W. Henderson Consulting and presented in the Resource Stakeholder Engagement Report. Next slide, please. So this is just a graphic of the strategic goals, just to touch on them briefly, and then I'll get into the details of the objectives. First one is to enhance large-scale forestry operations. Second one is to enhance the small-scale forestry operations. Third one was to enhance the value-added forestry sector. Fourth was to enhance the biofuel resource in the northern communities. The fifth was to enhance the non-timber forest products program. And the sixth was to enhance the communication with resource users and the government. So I will get into a little bit more detail on each of the strategic goals and objectives. You can advance the slide, please. So again, the first one was to enhance large-scale forestry operations. We want to promote large-scale forestry operations in the Look North region. The first one would be to meet with the local provincial government to establish the potential operating area available for new business. Right now in the north, CKP and Nizo Capo are operating. They have the operating area from south of the Paw all the way up to north of Thompson. Right now they're operating down in Grand Rapids area, so there may be potential that other areas can be opened up and for large-scale forestry. Research viability of the large-scale forestry operations. So we need to research, is it going to be viable? What's out there for timber available? Research the trembling aspen market. It's a large unallocated species in the north. We have great aspen stands up, great quality. So there's, is there a market, and can we get product out of the trembling aspen? And then to create a promotional campaign open for business. The north is open. We want to promote that we're here and we can contribute. Next slide. The strategic goal number 2 was to enhance the small-scale forestry program. And the first objective there was to promote the small community-based sawmill operations. And as you can see, the pictures below, that's from the sawmill that we saw in the video from Split Lake that they've set up. So we want to create a promotional package that can be delivered in northern communities consisting of setup, purchase costs, operating costs, labor requirements. Get it out to the communities, show the video, show what can be done. We want to create a training package that can be delivered to the communities, including setup, milling, and marketing. Create a funding program for the sawmill purchase and operating. Engage the local business in Thompson to market the northern products. So start with, the sawmill in Split Lake. They're milling for local use. Once you get that established, is there markets with the local lumber companies in Thompson, Flin Flon, the Paw? And then we want a product assessment and suitability study. Next slide. Objective 2 for the small scale forestry program was to enhance the local skills to support forestry operations. So something that was said in the stakeholder engagement process was, we need skilled labor. So we want to create a training package that supports the local sawmill operations, including tree identification, block layout, road location, and harvesting techniques. Create a training program for harvesting, your cut and skid operations. And it doesn't have to be large, it can be you're cutting with the chainsaw and a small skidder. Start small. We don't need the large harvesting equipment to get going. And create a training package for the reforestation, the tree planting, surveys, brushing, all the stuff that has to be done after you've logged it to regrow the forest. Next slide. And this is just included a few of the forestry pictures, the processor, skidder. You can, next slide, please. So strategic goal number 3, enhance the value-added forestry sector. And the objective here was to enhance the byproduct from sawmill operations. So research the pellet, siding, fuel wood markets, community sales, shavings. Is there a market that we can use the byproducts from the sawmills? Create a trading program to run the byproduct businesses. Engage local government to secure land tenure for business operations. And product assessment and suitability study. Next. The fourth strategic goal was to enhance the biofuel resources in northern communities. Lac Brochet currently has a project on the go. It's a 1.5 megawatt biomass heating system that has been started up. And so with objective 1 is to create a biofuel program for northern Manitoba. Research the existing biofuel projects. There's a few of them there's one in the north, like I said, and there's a few in the south. So the costs, the resources needed, the successes. Can this be done with other communities? Engage the northern communities in the biofuel options. Research the funding options. Is this viable, and can northern communities, heat their community off of the biofuel? And again, a product assessment and suitability study is needed. Will this work, and is there enough timber for it? Strategic goal number 5 was to enhance the non-timber forest products program. There's a lot of small non-timber forest product businesses out there. We're looking at promoting the businesses in the Look North region. So create a marketing campaign for the non-timber forest product businesses. Create a marketplace for the local businesses to sell their products. Can a venue be set up for selling local crafts? There's always the craft fairs at Christmas, but is there opportunity to do this a few times a year? To set up in the summer and do like a farmer's market. Incorporate it with the fish harvesters market that was put on. So do it a few times a year to help promote the products that are out there and help the locals sell their products. Next slide. The second objective for the non-timber forest product program was to grow the business opportunities. So research new opportunities. What are other regions doing? What are other provinces doing? Are there other opportunities out there that haven't been thought of? create an easily accessible funding program for businesses, create a training program for starting a new business, engage the local government in the non-timber forest product opportunities. And that in the survey that was done was, to get the local government on side. Create a package that provides businesses with government contacts, forms, and process information when applying for permits. What do they need for permits? Who do they go to? Where's the government contacts? Need to put a package together to make it easy for the smaller companies and smaller businesses to go to the government and know where to get the permits and how to go about this. And again, a product assessment and suitability study. And the sixth strategic goal was enhance the communication with resource users and government. The objective one was to enhance the relationship between resource users and the local government. The first one was to create a directory of local provincial government resources. Again, who are the people in government that you need to talk to? What permits are needed? Who's the local contact? We want to engage the local government in the Look North strategic plan, get everyone on the same page, let them know that this is what's out there. Create a map of existing forest users and land title holders so that we know who's on the landscape and is there opportunity for new businesses. Research new funding opportunities for the North, federal and provincial grants, what's available for money, and investigate resource revenue sharing options. The second objective to the enhanced communication with resource users is to enhance the relationship with Indigenous communities, engage the communities in the Look North strategic plan. Again, like I said, with the government, get this out to the First Nation, the Indigenous communities, and promote the strategic plan. Create workshops to promote the small-scale forestry program and non-timber forest products. And engage the Indigenous communities on significant cultural activities that can be incorporated into the non-timber forest products program. So what is out there that the Indigenous communities may have that can be put forward? That is the Look North Forestry Strategic Plan. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Great, thank you, Shauna. Yes, does anyone have any questions or any comments? Best time to ask us now whilst we have Shauna here. Any questions from anyone?
I'll jump in with a question, assuming I've unmuted myself here. Thinking back, I don't know if it was a year or 18 months ago, conversation with Bruce Holmes, who I don't know if he still is at the time regional forester for the province. And I took away from that conversation the understanding that a lot of the resources and availability to harvest in northern Manitoba was tied up or had claims already. So if you're looking at expanding forestry in the region, what does it look like if my understanding is correct that TOCO or whoever they are now has the rights to harvest from that land? What does that look like?
They do have rights to some areas, and again, this is where we'd have to engage the government as to what else is out there, what areas are available. And it's Canadian Craft Paper that has the rights, formerly TOCO. Is there opportunity to get maybe some of the allocation for other resources? So like I said, that would definitely have to engage the government in these conversations. And Bruce is not here anymore. He has retired and moved on.
I got a question.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. Sorry, Derek from World Trade Center.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I have, I suppose, more of a comment to put out, but it's a bit of a question. or just kind of food for thought on kind of big picture around the forestry and forestry resources in northern Manitoba. And that's there's a growing area like globally whereby forest resources, natural resources like this are really becoming a valuable strategic asset, and that's in things like the global carbon markets and carbon credits. There's a lot of developments and things happening around what we're calling natural infrastructure solutions and different approaches that actually have means to not only look at natural resource preservation of forests, but also ways that those are actually monetized through global carbon markets and carbon credit trading regimes, et cetera. It's a very interesting area, the way things are happening globally as the world is looking for solutions. And Manitoba sits on some of the most pristine, forests out there. So I just wonder if some of that's ever like entered into the thinking. And I know we got the folks at Innovation Edge who's going to encourage us to think of the big wild ideas, but I wonder if there's some research to be done on some of those avenues of the future of northern forests in those global markets.
Yeah, I'm not sure if anything has been done, but something to look into. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Derek. Is there any advice you have, Derek, in regards to that particular item, in regards to what would be the next step?
I'm no expert in this stuff. I mean, I've seen some trends or ideas. I could forward, the few bits of information I've got, but I think there would also be tie-ins of this relative to the province in the kind of some of the frameworks in the climate and green plan, and looking at some of those options as these concepts start to, I think, gain more traction, not just locally, but as economic strategies as well on things like that. So okay. I could send you a couple links your guys' way and go from there, but not at all the expert. I just, observe some discussions happening out there globally about that.
That'd be great. Okay, thank you. Excellent. Any other questions from anyone?
Yeah, it's Evelyn. Just one quick one. Shauna, hi, by the way, long time no see.
Yeah.
I was just wondering when you mentioned lobbying the government for extended licensing, you weren't talking about taking away licensing from existing companies. You were looking at new resources.
Yeah, what's out there, what is available. There is there is a lot of land, and it wouldn't necessarily mean taking away from what's out there, or from who's got the rights right now.
Great. Okay, so I will, and Shauna, if you could put your email in there in case there's any other follow-up questions into the chat box.
I will.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Shauna. And in saying that, I am going to now switch it over to Envision Edge, who's going, and to Ryan, who's going to be walking us through now into the breakout room. So Ryan.
Awesome. Thanks everybody, and thanks Shauna. That was great context. I hear Lakehead University. I spent a couple of years living in Thunder Bay, so and definitely lots going on there in forestry as well. So I hear that, and oh yeah, beautiful city. I hope you enjoyed your time there. And thank you for setting up the context with the strategic initiatives that you're focusing on. Exciting opportunities, and that's what we want to leverage our context around, as I said before. I won't repeat everything I said before. That wasn't just intended to be filler. So we know what we're doing. We're getting into breakout rooms, and we're having conversations around specific strategic initiatives. So one is that non-timber forest product opportunities, and we saw a couple examples of local markets and different ways. We really want to stretch the thinking. What other non-timber forest product opportunities could exist? Could it be in the area of dyeing, crushing, trends in beauty care, skin care, food items? What other opportunities exist out there? So we want to talk about that. The second one that we're going to focus on is small scale forestry operations. So we have 4 breakout rooms. 2 of you will be dealing with non-timber. I can't get those. The other 2 will be dealing with small scale forestry operations. And the folks from CEDF who are in your breakout rooms will let you know what conversation you're focusing on. The first thing we want to do are, what are those initial thoughts on your mind? What's the first thing that occurs to you? So when you think of problems that exist in that realm or opportunities, get those out right away and start thinking about an idea. And really an idea. It's easy to talk about themes or, you know, big high level out there things, but if you're really going to make it have some legs and land on the ground, what could that idea look like? Who would you solve a problem for? How might that idea work a little bit? You might not have all the details, but that's okay. It's easy, and a lot of you have been on all these sessions, so you've heard me say this a lot. It's way easier to take a big, wild, ridiculous idea and make it possible. Through a process, you can make it feasible. But it's really hard to take a small, safe, boring, typical idea and blow it up into something that is really going to create breakthrough in this industry. So we want to think big. And as such, don't hold yourself back. We want these breakout rooms to be a safe place to just throw the wild and crazy out there and capture that stuff, and that can be worked out later, okay? So we're going to take 20 minutes and get into our breakout room, and the CEDF will help you on what topic you're focusing on. David and I will be bouncing around to help out in the conversation and listen in as well.
Historically, right?
Right.
But if I don't know if you've ever seen, so they cut wood like 2 feet sections, and you laid horizontally, and there's caulking or cementing in between or something. But it's actually a home that you can live in. So that's an idea. Also, if you look online, like we even have it in Winnipeg, I think. But this is not stuff, it's not like go cut a tree with a chainsaw. It's beaver chewed trees. Man, it's a big thing. It's an international market. Like it goes for hundreds of dollars in the States, in the big cities, in Europe. And all it is chunks of the end of the wood where the beaver chewed. You could just buy that stick and that's like $40.
We see that everywhere.
Exactly. But I mean, so it's everywhere up north. But I mean, there are stores that do, even in Manitoba, that sell that crap. But if you go online and look, there's all like, you know, they make lamps and there's a big chunk where the beaver chewed, like, and it's really pricey. And think of it, it's not a lot of work and it's a abundant resource. You just got to walk by any side of any lake. There's that.
The thing
There's
that
an idea for sure.
with the beaver damming issues, as opposed to now blasting the dam, we're going and taking apart their dam to sell their.
Well, which is always fun anyway. I've done that for fun because they all come out and piss off and they try to fix whatever you're doing. No, that's a fun thing. But yeah. What else?
At my cabin, I have a poplar tree that looked like a bear had climbed up it when it was a very young tree, and now it's an enormous poplar tree. And these bear claw marks are like these big black things that are enormous. It looks like a giant had climbed up the tree because the tree is now like a huge canopy. I always thought to myself, if that tree ever falls down, I'm going to cut that section out of that tree and I'm going to sell that because it's like a work of art. It's like a gigantic claw marks in the tree. And it was probably just a small tree when that bear climbed up it, but it's enormous now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that might be the kind of thing that if you can find it in the wilderness, it could sell just like the beaver.
Well, the beaver is prolific, right? And I think I know there's still lots of trapping, but it's way less prolific than it used to be.
Right.
And all they do is chew wood all frickin' day, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of that product, but I'm just trying to think what else. Out of the box thinking. I don't know.
And I wonder if storytelling's a bit of an element with that too. Because if somebody didn't really know and it's just a stick with some chew marks on it, like we would know a beaver did that. Maybe somebody wouldn't. But if there was a story of where it came from, what spot in the forest, how it was found, that kind of stuff actually brings up the value of something. Remember one time there was a on eBay, somebody wrote a story about a meatball, and it sold for like $30 or something. But who's gonna buy a meatball? Nobody. But the story was so hilarious that they bought it just because it was funny. But if you could tell a really good story with some of this stuff, that brings value too. Whether it's you look for areas where moose have rubbed on a tree and you just take that little tree down, or
Harder to find, and if you find a rubbing, I want to find the moose then and go shoot it, right?
that too.
As you could tell, but
Or even if you find the willows where a moose is kind of grazed and shoot everything off, take some of that. Like there's things like that where there's a whole story there.
Yeah, and even willow, like the diamond willow is, I believe, there's a lot of it up north. I mean, in the swamps, that's where we have a lot of swamp up north. There's lots of markets for those diamond willow. Like I have a couple of walking sticks, right?
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of communities have little willow making walking sticks, and a lot of people have them, but it's an easy thing to put on the market. You can leave them natural, you can spiral them, there's all kinds of things. And just what you were talking about, David, you drop it in a bin and there's a big thing that talks about the diamond willows and whatever, and you know, we can touch it if there is anything holistic or indigenous about it. These are all ongoing, they're already existing, so that we know the market's there.
Yeah.
It's just to find somebody with the motivation to get this all going, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're kind of bleeding a little bit over into the non-timber forest products thing, but I get what you mean. Some of it is still marketable, and it's coming from the trees and that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
But going back to the thing that you had said about the stacked wood construction, the alternative construction, one of the things we did talk about when we were in Split Lake and dealing with Jason Powell, who was the guy who certifies the wood and all that sort of thing. He did say to those guys, he says, if you can get an engineer to sign off on a plan for a house that doesn't use regular stick construction like 2x4, 2x6, that sort of thing. If you can get a log structure or a post barn kind of structure or whatever certified by an engineer, then you can bypass the certification process altogether and just use the type of lumber that the engineer said to use from your local area and using rough wood. And then you can build those, and those would be perfectly legit certified houses because they're going off an engineered plan. So there's an additional startup cost there, but there's not the ongoing cost of having to renew your license all the time, get all of your wood certified and all that sort of thing. So the mill can be viable because, like you said, the tripping point sometimes is that
it is
pumping out certifiable wood, stampable wood.
So there have been, I know in the 80s, there was a big initiative out of Wabodin. There were some private investors and they did log homes. I think and I hate to find the problems, that's not really what we're here for, but it's the size of the lumber. If you're talking about like log homes and stuff, and the farther north you go, the less viable lumber, unless you get close to the lakes, right? Which we have lots of, but the stacked log, I know that they're already existing and there's homes like that in Canada, so it's doable. The engineers, it's already there. It's probably, the specs are probably there. And I know, like, for the people with the mills, I'm not sure of this, but I don't know what kind of spec you need for like decks because I think if you're using like to make small scale, not to build a home, nothing like that, but for like a shed, for different types of purposes like that, you could use a sawmill. And I believe the certification is way back, or you might not even need it. You might need it for a deck, some sort of certification, because it has a lot of load. But as far as like sheds and stuff,
no, you'll want to be using wood that's structurally sound, but you're not going to need the certification unless it's going into the building of a home, and then the government's going to be subsidizing the cost of construction on that home. Then you're going to have those certifications there. But I mean, if it's for a fence or a deck or a dock or you name it, I mean, no, there's no stamp for that.
There's no stamp for, I think,
there's
I
no-
thought it was as soon as you added liability for life, like a risk for life. So a deck, if you have a deck party, there's when you need that good quality spruce, right?
Yeah.
So that's where my mind goes.
Yeah, well,
but
your
I'm
main
not sure on that.
support beams, you probably want to make sure that they're good.
Right.
But there's not going to be any inspector coming in to
Right.
worry about that.
So that's a possibility.
Sorry, is there the opportunity for the aspen to be used in that sort of stuff? Like,
That's something we should talk to Jason about, because he's the certification guy, and like he said, sawmilling is sawdust is in his blood. So if he doesn't know the answer to the question, we can approach him and he'll.
The economic development opportunities for the north, for the communities, and really kind of in a framework of reconciliation versus further let's extract more from the land and go capitalize it, right? So I think that's just such a key piece to keep fitting together on that.
No, I think that's an excellent point. I'm glad we're discussing that. I know, Jamie, did you want to make some comments about this?
No, I'm good. It's a really interesting discussion, though.
Okay. So Derek, I think it's important that perhaps there needs to be, aside from promoting the industry, I think we need to also be able to promote best practices, and that has to be aligned with making sure that the local leaders, the communities, are all on board when it comes to, especially when it comes to harvesting for traditional use. And I think, and I've heard that in many years as well. I'm sorry, Derek, do you want to say something else? I know you have to leave soon.
No, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I would just maybe specifically add into that discussion as a point of consideration this notion of intellectual property rights around this and how that factors into the economic development picture, because that can be a game changer. If someone else can apply for a patent and all of a sudden the real high value piece of the development of that industry doesn't stay with the local community.
So Shannon's gonna patent the skunk juice.
I'm gonna patent skunk juice.
Yeah.
No,
Oz
I
is
was
gonna be the
gonna
first
do
test.
it.
I was gonna thank Derek for his comment about knowledge and patenting rights, because OCAP is a really serious thing for First Nation communities. So there would have to be an understanding of who that knowledge belongs to and who's sharing it with who. So I want to thank you for bringing that up, Eric. And if I were to patent skunk juice, I'd have to bring Mosagig and Cree Nation in with me. So we're going
to open up a skunk farm and all these things, and it could blow up into this huge industry.
How about the industry where the harvesting does not relate to traditional use, but say the, I don't know, cosmetic industry or some other industry that, what's your thoughts on that?
Right?
Sure, Derek, yeah.
Well, I think mine is to kind of come back to this probably the same approach. I mean, I think to keep these questions like sort of mindful of how that relates, and it would not surprise me that even if we're finding a cosmetic use or, if there's a skincare benefit or, a variety of things, it probably relates to the traditional knowledge at some point, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe not exclusively, but probably in more cases than not, it can be traced back there. So, yeah.
Oz, to your question, something like peat moss, I don't know if that's considered.
Yeah, that
what is it? NT is non-traditional. Is that what that's?
Yeah, like when we talk about perhaps non-traditional use, I totally understand the harvesting when it comes to traditional use and the need to protect rights in that way. I was just curious about if it's harvested for non-traditional, say,
like strictly commercial.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think of something like peat moss, which is pretty like I know that the last provincial government banned peat moss extraction or increased peat moss extraction in certain areas. It's viewed as being like fairly environmentally, what's the proper word to use? Some view it as being very damaging on the environment.
Oh, yeah.
The industry itself wouldn't argue that, but if you were to introduce that, say in northern Manitoba, in different regions, that'd be an interesting, to say the least, it would be an interesting dialogue, because it would absolutely have an impact.
I'm catching up on that part. So is it the extraction of the peat moss, or is it the peat moss being in that area? That's
The extraction of it, because
the
they basically
extraction?
they peel back the muskeg, they remove a whole bunch of
And it's delicate.
yeah,
It's
super
really
delicate environments.
grounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost like
The
on
industry would
Churchill with the tundra.
has little impact, but opponents to the industry would say it has a pretty big impact.
It's related to that whole question of kind of the emissions as well, because I think it plays a big role as a natural sink for greenhouse gas emissions. And when you harvest it, then it takes away that capacity of the natural capacity to sequester the carbon around the emissions.
Yeah. What's the economic term where we don't the economic term where we don't place an economic value on something that's currently existing? Like
I think they call it the externalities or something like that.
Yeah.
But it kind of goes back to the point I made in the larger group around this movement around natural climate solutions. And there's like very early stage efforts about building global capital markets to recognize and put financial and economic value on what they're calling ecosystem services. So the very fact that peat moss or the boreal forest would be sequestering greenhouse gas emissions, that there's going to be a global capital market that will be able to take private sector investment into that because it's providing a valued service.
Talk about it.
Yeah. We were talking about markets for bulk items of like foods that can be harvested, products to be harvested for beauty markets. We discussed an annual harvesters table. We talked about extraction laws. We talked about knowledge sharing, and that went to a discussion about OCAP. And I don't know, it's in a nutshell.
I'm particularly, and in just personal interest, I'm curious more about the beauty product one, just because I don't get it. Like, what could you get out of a forest in northern Manitoba that could create a beauty product? Were there any specific ideas, or does anybody on the call know, like, what types of things could be harvested for that?
Ryan, just one quick thing before anyone else. One thing about our discussion as well that led to was the real need to balance off traditional rights when we're talking about this type of industry, especially if the stuff is going to be used for traditional uses. That when it comes to the indigenous population and the community, that we really need to make sure we balance the demands of the industry with also rights as well. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I know that black poplar buds are harvested and used in making a salve that's good for all sorts of different skin irritations and that sort of thing. And then I think that black birch has a lot of medicinal uses also. I don't know if that's what you're looking for the cosmetic thing, but.
So, and is that something that's done today?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is there an idea associated with that? I'm kind of pushing you just to go further with it, and not just for you, Kurt, but anybody. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Is there something that can be done differently with it? Is there a particular export opportunity? Are there more applications? Love
You
to hear some
talked,
thoughts.
you talked about birch. Chaga is the mushroom that grows on the birch, and there's chaga tea. So I'm assuming that maybe you guys already have maybe that industry, or maybe you don't. But I know that that's a very hot commodity. I love chaga. I drink it. There's a lot of health properties. So just a thought.
There is an opportunity with fireweed. If am I coming through?
Yep.
The fireweed is exported or taken out of Manitoba to Saskatoon for processing, but they've lost their processing capacity because Brent Zettel bought up all the ethanol extraction equipment. So they're having to ship their fireweed to France for processing. So there is an opportunity to build a replacement ethanol plant, stripping plant, somewhere in the north to facilitate their needs. So there's a value-added component that you could add to your raw product stream now, and there's other products that can be then stripped using that ethanol plant.
Mm.
Now, the other one that I wasn't able to get expressed was there is a very high value product in tree chemicals. The trees are laced with various chemicals which can be extracted, the knots in particular. So you need a facility where you can get the knots isolated and then extract the high value chemicals. And that would probably be your kraft and paper mill, where now, as I understand, they isolate the knots, separate them out because they don't want them in their paper product, and burn them. And they're worth around, the figures that we came up with, around $10 million a year is being thrown away at the kraft mill in Le Pas. So there is a value-added component there if you could convince them to add a line to their existing their equipment and infrastructure.
Wow, that's interesting. I love how you're thinking through the lens of value add. So there's a couple immediate opportunities on the production side or on the processing side, as opposed to, a lot of, we're talking about like product opportunities or how do we use that resource, but even just creating a processing opportunity that's regionalized, localized. Same came up yesterday in commercial fishing. That's a whole other element. I'm kind of curious about the chemicals. I don't know, maybe that's getting a little too granular. What comes out of a knot that can be used? Do you have any examples of that?
Yeah, we did a study here a number of years ago, and we studied 4 trees: birch, pine, spruce, and poplar, and they all produce different chemicals. A lot of them are used. Some of them are used in cosmetics. Some of them are anti-cancer. Some of them are anti-inflammatory. I could give you I could flesh this out for you in an email if you wanted to Stephanie, and then get her, see if she'll pass it on. But certainly there's opportunity there. We couldn't do anything with it because we didn't have the facility that you have in Le Pas, right, where those knots are routinely removed. So you'd have to have a big line to try and just get that knot, see. But it's certainly possible in Le Pas, and I would glad to share that information with you. And our estimates were, about $10 million worth of revenue lie in those knots, see, which aren't being utilized.
Mm-hmm.
I think a good point would be to communicate with some of the medicine people on some of the indigenous locations, and then we can find out, you could basically find out the chemical composition just by what they use it for a healing purpose. To get rid of headaches, stuff like that. Well, that's how Senna came about as a laxative. It's a root from a senna plant. It's harvested all over Manitoba.
Yeah. How about, big picture thinking? How about a whole thing on medicines, on traditional Canadian Indigenous medicines, and having that go? So we talked about different types of trees and what they have. I know I've had spruce bark poultices on my legs when I'm in the bush and have a cut. There's all kinds of stuff, right? L'herbe d'Inde, those little white flowers. What's the English name? Yarrow.
Mosquito repellents, everything. There's all
Yarrow.
kinds.
No, yarrow. So it's actually historically a stauncher of bleeding and stuff. But it's also, you can make teas. It's very, very, it's actually toxic, so you have to be careful, but it helps your breathing. I mean, there's all kinds of things that just grow everywhere. It's wild.
Yeah.
And so it forms part of a bigger picture of marketing as indigenous medicines.
Excellent. I love these ideas. Thanks so much for sharing them. And what you're hearing and what you might be getting a picture of here is there's so many opportunities. There's on the processing side, it even sounds like on the communication and education side. So like what are, what is a whole palette of indigenous medicines? How can they be used, harvested, and how can industry be formed around that? So that's great. So what we want to do in the next one, because we do have 20, 25 minutes left here, we'll take another 20 minutes to get into another breakout room. What I'd like you to do in this one, I think we're going to shake things up just a little bit as far as who's in which room. What I want you to do here is maybe you can focus on an idea for a period of time and start fleshing it out a little bit more. Start thinking about, okay, who is this for? Who would we be offering this to? If we're to follow this idea through, who's a customer for that idea? And what specific problem would we be solving? And that's a way of just thinking like, so what is the value? How could we communicate this opportunity out to the right person? Who is it and what problem are we solving? And love to hear a little bit about what do you think would be needed to get it started? What could be step one? You don't have to solve the problem. You don't have to build the entire roadmap, but just start. What would be that first step that could be taken to give this idea some legs? So we'll take 20 minutes to address those questions in your breakout rooms now.
If we took that one, I mean, what problem would that solve if we were able to do that?
Okay. On your trembling aspen, for example, then, if you were to take and put in a Chisholm log mill, I don't know if you're familiar with the Chisholm log mill. Aspen is an ideal candidate for making milled logs, and from what I'm hearing, that you have good stands of trembling aspen. I'm assuming by good stands you're talking about 70 footers, 60, 70 footers. Yeah. And those could be milled and then supply your local housing needs with a milled log. And those don't require CMHC certifications. So they can be, built at locally with minimum problems.
For log homes, eh?
Yes, log homes. Are you familiar with the Chisholm log type?
No.
No? Okay.
But yeah, we did talk about that a little bit, the idea that if you have an engineered home.
Such an unused resource up in the north here, and such good quality, like large, nice, white, clean aspen that we have up here.
So, and so that's good for structural as well as a lot of different uses, right?
I think when I looked it up, that yes, it can be used for structural, and that there is a grading system for it. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I'm pretty sure there is a grading system.
Mm-hmm. I guess just a side thing is, like we were talking before, it's tough for a small scale operator to compete just on dimensional lumber,
The root that grows in swamps.
Okay.
Been traditionally harvested for probably thousands of years. But it would be turning something like that, which a lot of people in the north use and they know about. And then I would say that would be like this much of it. Let's say 10% of it. The other 80 to 90% would be branding it and marketing it so that people people think they're getting access to something that's really unique and beneficial.
Yep.
Yeah.
They sell it in UCN, and I don't even think the supplier is local, like the Paw campus UCN.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, and they come in a plastic baggie, and if I'm correct, it's not Rodney Forbes. Like it's not a local harvester or producer, and
It makes you uncomfortable, obviously.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not so much that it's being sold. It's the way it's packaged. You know, it's like it's almost obvious that the person is trying to make it look indigenous, or either it's overly indigenous, you know, like it just, I don't know, stuff like that. Just you don't need to make it fancy like that. Oh, people can read.
Talking a Ziploc bag.
You know,
like a little dime bag.
If it's a
Dime bags
Ziploc
are
bag,
really good.
but that's what I mean, you know, like we're talking about the value of a culturally, of a respectfully harvested product, but then you go and throw it in this baggie and little cardboard top. It's just like, why go through the effort? Like,
But that effort, and Jamie was talking about that. So when he was talking about that New Zealand, right? And it's not for you, right? You'll go get your own, right? But it's for marketing, for then all these people feel that they're in touch with Indigenous people, and it's, you know, the whole, it's just it's a scam. Marketing's a scam. But well, it is.
But I don't want somebody, you know, coming from, say, Jamaica.
But that's where you have to control it. And you have to
Yeah.
create that certification that says this is legit.
Yeah.
This is legit OCN Wiges.
Exactly. You know, like it becomes, you know, even because you can get it down south too, right?
Yeah.
But you market it as specific to your area.
Well,
So,
where are these bags sold, Shannon? Where
In the
where-
gift shop at UCN.
Oh, the gift shop.
It's
Right.
kind of
Okay.
ridiculous because they've got sweetgrass braids, and you know, like they're not even Canadian.
Like ceremonial
Like
stuff.
it's-
Eh?
Yeah, and it's the dream catchers. I think one of them was from Wisconsin. It just, you know, like things like that. It just,
They make dream catchers out in Wisconsin.
Everywhere. Everywhere.
Wow.
I knew somebody in Yellowknife that had amazing business. She was all over Canada. It started just a little home industry, and then she started getting everything manufactured in China because that was the cheapest cost, and it was all over, and it was all Innu stuff, all of it. And Innu, you know, symbols, the colors. She just mimicked everything, and was huge success. Right? But I mean, when you see Shannon, when you see people from all over, from Wisconsin making money off something like that, it just goes to show that there's a hole in the market. There's a need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
On the packaging, I'll give you an example. We did when I was in government, we did a tour of a major packaging plant here in Winnipeg. They do like Keurig K-Pot, like the pods, whole bunch of different companies they make packaging for, and just beautiful stuff. And they had one package, it was for beef jerky, and you know how they have now like flat coloring, textured.
Yeah.
They made some comment about the packaging being more than the product that's in the packaging, and for a lot of the stuff that they're selling, that you're paying more for the actual package it comes in, and the beauty of the package, and the fact that it's like it because it conveys a certain branding and a certain experience, right? You're paying way more for that than you are for the actual product that's inside of that. Beef jerky is an example. You're paying more for the package it comes in, and the texturing and how it makes you feel, and is it organic, healthy, what's in it, all that, than you are for the actual stuff inside the package.
And some of that stuff tastes like rubber, the way they process it, right? I mean, like, it's not like the stuff you pull out of your stove or out of a smoker, for sure. Yeah.
So if someone could do that with Weegace and not just a baggie with cardboard.
The dime bag, that's going to be stuck in my head all day.
I do know that the tamarack is not a candidate to go into the pulp and paper process. That's for sure. They certainly don't like to see that coming in. So, there probably is some large stands out there that are untouched simply because that industry is excluded. They don't want that input. Plus, so larch and tamarack, it has a natural preservative.
Yeah, you can stick a tamarack in water and it'll last for 40 years. I mean, it's I don't know. It's a very hard wood.
Okay, because cedar is cedar's soft, right? So
yeah, cedar is soft in comparison, but larch has the same characteristics.
Oh yeah. Huh.
But you need there's lots of small larch around, even where I sit here. But there are some bigger stands. Alberta is typically known for the large stands. But until you do an assessment of your timber resource, you could very well have some larger timber in northern Manitoba that is being underutilized.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
I'm just trying to avoid the problem of pressure treating woods for that kind of wood.
Yeah, that would be. That would solve that problem. They don't have to make the investment. They don't have to buy the chemicals and all that sort of thing for to be able to make those kinds
the other one that has some merit for consideration, although it's very long term, is your ash stands that occur along the Saskatchewan River around Le Pas.
Right.
They're not utilized, but what you'd have to do, and I can only go back to a study that was done probably 40 years ago, and the ash was examined. But what needed to happen for that industry, the hardwood industry, to take off, ash is a very valuable furniture hardwood, is the stands need to be thinned, okay, because they're thick like carrots at present. So someone needs to go in there and thin those stands and manage it as a woodlot, and in 30 years from now you will have some timber that you can market at very high value. The timber at that time, the ash was worth around $7,000 a thousand for 1,000 board feet. I haven't priced it out recently, but it's be well beyond that now. So you've got some very high value timber potential there, but you have to take action now to realize the benefits down the road.
Finding, to me, the biggest barrier on getting anything business going is you have to find an individual with interest and the motivation to get through that tough part to start reaping rewards, right? That, to me, that's what it is. I mean, people have come to me, or I think that's a great idea. I'm not into doing all that work, right? Like throughout my life, I don't want to do that. So it's not everybody that can be an entrepreneur. It's not everybody that can go into a business. There's only a portion of
Missed it.
Were you capturing an idea?
Finish, Shannon, finish.
Go ahead, Shannon.
I was just talking, Evan had brought up needing the right individual, the right entrepreneur to market or even harvest some of these products. And for me, in our first session, I was talking about we don't understand how big or how small the market is, and then I don't know, unless we really dig into that, identifying the right people or the right groups or the right region to really dig into non-timber forest products harvesting and marketing, we need to get that initial research done first.
That's a huge solution then to that gap. CDF could do the research.
And that's a great point. I think that applies
Brian
to
said, think big and make it small.
yeah. Well, and Shannon, that's a great point. Like, I'm glad that you hadn't finished your thought and you get to finish it in the main group here, because it applies to both of those main missions that we were discussing, to even the small operations, right? We needed to figure out, so what are opportunities for small operations? Well, we don't know unless we know what markets exist, right? So is there enough market? We were talking in the last group I was with there. Is there enough market to just build docks? You know, Chris's point, they're going to get smashed up in a couple of years, so we're not worried about the grade of lumber. So, but that's what I asked. Could I go up there and buy a small sawmill, and could I live off of that demand, or add on ice shacks, or add on, somebody said, you know, like enclosing boats? Is there enough? So it seems like a big step or a big win could be accomplished in just understanding the market demand associated with all of these excellent resources that are available. So great conversation. I think unless anybody, maybe I will do that, just in case you're kind of burning and overflowing to share something, I'll give that opportunity before I hand it back over to you, Oswald. Does anybody have sort of a big idea or a thought they really wanted to share with the group?
I think that I just wanted to make note to all of you that, you know, I've attended the forum 3 days. It was really great, and bravo to the team that you guys have pulled off a virtual forum like this, and great on the breakout rooms, really making us think outside the box. You know, letting you guys know that at the World Trade Center Winnipeg, we're there to help you at every step. So if you have entrepreneurs that are needing that help for, you know, be it social media, how to start a business, and then when they've already are in business, how to grow. If you're looking at market research, so we do secondary market research. So, you know, maybe CEDF would have to do the primary research, sending out surveys and focus groups and things like that. But if you're looking for industry reports or industry information, we have access to that as well. So I would, you know, encourage you to just reach out. Business advisors are there to help, and we really want, you know, you guys to succeed. So bravo. And I've visited Thompson a few years ago and met with Oswald and did presentations. I've been to Flin Flon. My picture came up of just on Facebook that I had been in Flin Flon a few years ago, and just always have been very well, you know, received from the north. So I wish you guys all the best, and bravo on a great forum.
Oh, thank you, Nicole. And yes, I do remember that article and that picture, and I phoned you up on that one. Excellent. And you know, I do want to thank everyone for participating. Before I do my close remarks and pass this over to Jamie, I believe there was one question from Ken. Sorry, before I go to Ken, I just want to recognize the World Trade Center. They are one of our key strategic partners, along with North Forge, along with Travel Manitoba. World Trade Center has been, we've partnered with them with a number of initiatives, and as Nicole mentioned, they have some great webinars on a monthly basis. So I would encourage everyone to look up whatever webinars they have each month. It's a great free service for people. So Ken, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
Well, I was just asked a question which I personally am not involved in, so I didn't get to have the information to answer the question properly. And just wondering if, because we talk about housing in our Look North strategy, how much of this has to do with when we're talking the small scale forestry operations, and it had been mentioned that we could use it, you know, for housing and stuff like that. If there's a separate strategy for housing that's going to be brought up, or if this is part of it.
Well, that question, and I'm glad to see that with the video that we showed, yes, that sawmill is in partnership with the First Nation leadership when it comes to housing and trying to increase the stock of housing. I think that's more for discussions going forward, but we'll make a note of that in regards to what additional stuff will be done in that area. You're right. Housing is one of the 6 focus areas for Look North. Mohammed, welcome. I just saw you there. I'm going to go to Jamie, and Jamie will be introducing the new CEO. So Jamie, you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Oz. Just before I start, maybe to echo Oz's comments, thanks to World Trade Center. World Trade Center has been a really, really good partner. So I just wanted to echo that. And Oz, so as you guys know, Oz is retiring at the new year at the end of December. So he'll be stepping into an advisory role until then. And I just wanted to talk about, just briefly before I introduce Muhammad, just want to recognize Oz and the work he's done over how many years in Northern Manitoba, Oz? Quite a few. You're on mute. It's been quite a few. You're still on mute.
Yeah, I was on mute. Yeah, I came up in 1993, worked with Indigenous and Northern Relations. Been with there for 5 years, with CEDF for 21. So yeah, it's been about 27 years for me now.
Yeah. And you can't go anywhere in Northern Manitoba without running into people that Oz has impacted, and that CEDF has impacted. You know, you go to Churchill. Churchill is a good example. I don't know how many of the hotels or businesses there would exist without CEDF. There's a lot of businesses in Northern Manitoba that wouldn't exist without CEDF's help, and without Oz's help in particular. Like, so you've been just a remarkable asset for the North, Oz, and I just wanted to recognize that.
Thank you.
So just a quick introduction. Yeah, round of applause. And we'll do a more formal event of some kind when we can actually like physically get together, and so we'll that's on the top thing on our to-do list is do some formal event for Oswald. Just wanted to take a few minutes to introduce our new incoming CEO, Muhammad Hassan, and he's been trying to teach me how to say his name properly, and I'm trying to teach him how to say Nissechuea Sikh and Pasquia properly. So Muhammad is former CAO of the city of Iqaluit, brings extensive experience in economic development, regional economic development, got his start working in microloans in South Africa. Just some fascinating stories there. Really understands Indigenous issues, duty to consult, mining development projects. And so maybe I'll ask Muhammad to introduce himself. How are we doing for time here, guys?
Lots of time.
5 minutes or so, or yeah, Muhammad, maybe just if you could introduce yourself.
Wonderful, Jamie. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Let me take this opportunity to really thank the board under the leadership of Jamie Wilson, for the opportunity to lead the organization. And secondly, let me take also this opportunity to thank Oswald for his dedication and service to the North. Well done. There are very few people who are dedicated the North. So I'm excited for the opportunity and obviously the situation we're going through with COVID, the challenges adding to that. But I'm excited. I've always been passionate about the North. I have been in the North in and out 10 years, both as a chief administrative officer, advisor to the Premier. I've also done some work in Fort Nelson as chief executive for the holding company for a year and a half. So I'm familiar with the North, the lifestyle, the challenges, the opportunities, and I've always been an ambassador to the North, for the North, both with different leadership within the federal government and the territorial government. So this is really an opportunity for me to pursue that and be an ambassador for the North. My background is both in economics and marketing. I started my career with nonprofit with UNICEF for 5 years in both South Africa and in Turkey. Then went into private enterprise, then decided to go to public service, then went back again to private enterprise. And then I realized my passion was in public service because the returns were tangible. And so I've been in public service for the last 10 years. Been recognized by the Canadian municipal administrators in 2018 out of 3,000 CAOs to be one of the best chief executives. So I look forward to the challenges and the opportunities and with the team to try and bring some value to the North and be a really loud mouthpiece for the success of the North. And again, I thank the board for the opportunity of leading the organization. And you never lead without partners and a team that is dedicated to the North. And I know with the leadership that Oswald and Jamie have offered the organization, it will be an easy transition for me to come in and work with the team to try and bring success to the Northerners, and people were excited for the success of the North, because if the North succeeds, the rest of the country succeeds. I've always had that aspect. Whenever we used to have conferences with the Prime Minister, who would come once a year, we would say, if we fail, the country fails, and if we succeed, the country succeeds. And I was able to sell that to few people who became again also a convert to be ambassadors for the North. Again, thank you for the leadership, and I look forward to the opportunities and successes of the organization. Thank you so much, Jamie.
Okay, thanks, Muhammad. How did I do with your name, Muhammad?
Amazing, amazing. There
oh, good.
Who were able to pronounce my first name the way you did.
Okay, now I got to hear you say Opasquiac.
Opasquale.
No, close. Well, not even.
Not even close. I think I butchered it. My apologies.
Okay, Opasquiac.
Opasquale.
There you go. That's good. It'll take you a while. Some of our community names are tough even for me.
It took 5 years for me to learn Inuktitut, so I'm going to try and shorten that.
Awesome. And just so you know, Muhammad is self-isolating right now to meet the 14-day self-quarantine requirements before he can physically go into the office. So with that, I think I'll turn things over back to Oswald.
Thank you. And thank you, Jamie. Muhammad, welcome on board. We look forward to seeing you in your office after your 14 days are up. I see that you're well set up inside your hotel room. There's some nice bright day here in Thompson. So the staff looks forward to meeting you, and we look forward to having discussions face to face. So that's great. Keep warm. We're entering into some cool stuff, but you know, for a guy that's been up in Kilwet for a number of years, I know this is nothing new to you. So welcome aboard. And that really ends our 5 days of forum. I can't thank enough all the participants. We had I believe over 250 participants over the week. We got some really good discussions. We got some really good ideas that our new CEO and the staff here at CDF through Look North will be really anxious to work on. Want to recognize Jamie and the board of directors just as a bit of a history here. Jamie, when I first met him, I think Jamie was back in 2016. And Jamie was the first one that really started to talk about having specific strategy for northern Manitoba. In the past, people used to have what they call strategies where really it was more of a policy lens. So, you know, the strategy before that was really just announce anything that was going to happen anyway, that is saying that's happening for Northern Manitoba. Through Look North was the first real strategy that was created by Northerners for Northerners, and it had specific items that we wanted to focus on. So Jamie was the one that really pushed on that, and of course CDF was more than willing to get on board that. Now it's been a couple of years since the official report came out, and I was very glad to provide our year in review on Monday. I think we're all on the right track. We have some really great staff that will be more than willing to take this forward. And we have a new CEO there that it seems very focused on it. So we look forward to what the new year will bring. In the meantime, I hope everyone stays safe. Say with COVID, that kind of came out of left field, of course, on us. We've had to adjust accordingly, but I think overall we've done quite well. But I want everyone to stay safe, and once again, to thank you for participating over the last 5 days. As mentioned, all of the presentations, all of the videos will be on our website towards the end of next week. And in saying that, I want to finally thank Vision Edge and Ryan and Mark for the support they've given us over the last 5 days. This is a totally new thing for us. We've never done an online forum, especially one over 5 days. So we learned a lot each day going forward. But Ryan and Mark, thank you very much. And in that, I will close our forum, and I wish everyone a enjoyable balance of their day. Enjoy your weekend, and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.